Richard Polinsky, 89 Hall Road. I'm going to bring something to the attention of the people of Londonderry that the town is aware of. And before anybody wants to beat up the messenger, this is information. It's information that came from the town. It's information that some people know and others don't. Later on tonight, you'll be talking about the former Lions Hall. What I'm talking about is the fact that, as far as I'm concerned, and the people I've spoken to, if the town is making any efforts to get back the $80,000 that they expended on repairs on the Lions Hall, that we were not responsible as taxpayers, because per their lease that they originally signed in 1972, they were 100% responsible for all maintenance, repairs, upkeep, inside and outside of the Lions Hall. That was the reason they got it for $1 a year. I'm also have some information that came from a Lions member and went to another Lions member I now have a copy of, that they have $80,000 sitting in a Wellington account, and that they also have $16,000 in donations that was made to them by Home Depot and Benson's for renovations that were needed on the building that they didn't use it for. And that this member actually quit the Lions Hall over this and some other issues. And what is the town going to do to try to get the taxpayers $80,000 back? The money came out of the maintenance trust fund, and as far as I'm concerned, and I have all the invoices here, the invoices, the dates, how much and everything. It came right to me from the town, so this is what it is. And I'm sure some of you up there are aware of this. One, I don't know why it was ever done. I understand it's a town building. They say they couldn't afford to do it, but they had a lease. After the first time they couldn't afford to do some maintenance to the building because they couldn't afford it, if that's the true case, they were in violation of the lease. Yet it went, for years and years more, they were allowed to do the same thing and came running to the town. This individual even says in here they had the money, yet they still just asked the town for money. I can give you the names you want, but I think that part's irrelevant. So the people need to know this. We're going to be talking later today about what later on in the agenda about the Lions Hall and what we, may or may not do with it and what needs to be done with it. Maybe some of this wouldn't have been done of when they couldn't afford to do the repairs originally. The town had terminated the lease. That's what you do with a lease. That's why it's in the lease. And this isn't hearsay. I can read the lease right here if you want. I got the whole thing. Apparently, the last lease, actually, from what I can see, never even got signed. So they were in there a few years with an unsigned lease. So, obviously, you can't do anything today, but I'd like at the next meeting, or the meeting after, I don't know when the next one is, if it's in 2 weeks or a month, I'd like some answers. And I don't, the answer I don't want is, well, it's a town building, they couldn't do it, so we did it. Because that's not an answer, because this is a lease.
Thank
I
you,
have
sir.
a real estate
Your
license.
time has expired.
Yeah, my time's expired.
Your time's
But you
expired.
don't have any rules, John, because you didn't vote them
Your
in.
time has expired.
Your time, you did
Sir,
not vote them
you
in
are out of order. Your
within
time is
10 days of the
Sir,
meeting
you are out
like the
of order.
charter
Your time has
requires.
expired.
And when the people were
Sir,
talking
you are out
about
of
the
order. Your
concerts on
time
the
has
confit,
expired.
it was also over
Sir,
5 minutes.
last warning.
But, John, I
You're out
don't
of
care what your
order.
warning
Your
is. Do
time
what you
has
have to
expired.
do and pay the consequences.
Your time has expired. Thank you.
Something they don't want to hear, that's what happens.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. Town Manager. My name is Dave Wally, Director of Public Works and Municipal Facilities, and I'm here to discuss what I consider to be, after discussions with the town manager and members of the community, the next logical progression and step in addressing the Lions Hall. As you've heard some concerns expressed here tonight, and I've heard many over the course of the last year or so that we've taken possession as we approach that since last September. There's great passion for that building. It has served this community for a great number of years, decades, and arguably even centuries. And some of you may have noticed, as the town manager brings up a picture of it, we've done some cosmetic appearances out there to kind of clean up the curb appeal, and the Christmas tree corral has been moved, which was partially controversial, but most people understand it, and we've gotten many, many compliments about how well it looks now with that removed. So just a little bit of recent history. Last October, we did a very good analysis of the building to basically let us kind of understand, without getting too aggressive and tearing walls apart and whatnot, but from bringing in different disciplines of engineers to take a look at that. And we've got a pretty good handle on the fact that the building is salvageable. It is not in modern standards as far as ADA compliance, electrical needs, HVAC. So if we are going to purpose it for any municipal use, there's a lot of upgrading that needs to take place with the facility. And the challenge there is that we have a facility that has a lot of emotional connectivity. It has some historic history to it that is very valued. And so how do you mend the two together where you meet today's standards have it open to the public, but yet preserve the history and the historical look of the building? So without having a specific useful purpose for the building, there's lots of ideas and there's lots of groups that have interest and lots of people that have interest. And it's going to, be a managing challenge for the town itself if we go down some of these avenues. But what we need to do is look at least conceptually, have a vision so that when we do get into actually drafting plans, that's not what I'm requesting here tonight. But the engineers have a good idea as to what it is we want them to try and give us pricing to. And like, the previous presentation, time is of the essence. This building is extremely old, and when you leave a building that old, vacant, for some time, without the water on, heat turned down low, air conditioning turned down low, things can deteriorate pretty quickly. We've seen some rodents move in there and some paint peeling and things of that nature, and that will only worsen as time moves on. So we're trying to move this project forward in a respectful, timely manner and listen to everyone's concerns and criticisms of what may or may not come with the facility. I will tell you that in my discussion with Weston and Sampson, that I apologize if there's some language in there that is a little confusing, but any renderings that we bring forward, there's not going to be any real changes to the view. We're not anticipating saying, let's put on a farmer's porch or something like that, or change the appearance in any way. We are kind of looking at ways to make that facility with some grade alterations and whatnot, and perhaps re-layout of the parking lot or entrance thereof, so that we can eliminate some very costly mechanical needs as far as access. ADA and getting someone to that first floor, I think people would all agree we don't want to have some kind of exterior, elevator. We're looking at doing some landscaping that would make the curb appeal certainly more eye-pleasing and really attract and draw some curiosity to the facility. It has been used by the community. I think, a Londonderry Community Center is something that is certainly in need. That's certainly the way that it has been utilized for a great deal of time, whether it was managed by Alliance Hall or whatnot. Even before that, it was used as the town's town hall, and as Ann appropriately pointed out, it was a meeting place, a place that Londonderry could come together and talk and have conversations and have ideas thought out. And I think that this building can still serve that purpose for a lot of people in town. So the idea is to work with Weston and Sampson to embrace some of the ideas that I've been hearing about, some of the sentiments that the town managers received as well, I'm sure you folks. And, we'd like to kind of get some of that down, a general layout, a look, something that things can be more critiqued. There is an aggressive timeline in here. I kind of demanded to them that I wanted them to hit the ground running real fast if this is approved tonight, and come back to me within a month so that we can kind of look at it, move it around, and then bring that before the public and you folks as well, obviously, to say, no, that doesn't look good, this doesn't, and then So at least that way, we kind of have an idea if we move to a design, if that's what the town chooses to do, we can kind of move things in a better way, a little bit quickly, instead of then, arguing about paint colors and things of that nature. So that's not really what we're looking to do here. It's more of a general layout. In my discussions with them, a lot of my conversations was preserving that building, or even perhaps, and this is where, I'm sure the Historic Committee would be excited to help us, bring back some of the glamour that building actually still does, that's hidden underneath the suspended ceilings. There's a lot of things that were kind of put in there because that was the construction materials available at the time and the cheapest way to go. But there's actually a very unique curved ceiling to that Lions Hall, believe it or not, that you can see when you enter that attic space that people have climbed up in, myself included. So that's what the presentation is for here, request rather, for $18,750 to work with Weston and Sampson, continue working with them. And to the request, the town manager thought it would be prudent to take that allocation out of ARPA funding for the town of Londonderry. And if you have any questions, I can move forward.
What is the balance in the ARPA funds?
I would have given an approximate, but 2,413,000. 32.
All right, thank you.
Do we see going forward spending potentially more money than this with Sampson?
It's a great
With Western
question.
Sampson?
So I understand the value of a tax dollar. I myself live in town. I'm a taxpayer myself. I think the allocation that we did previously in October was around the same amount. Gave us a pretty good handle on what the challenges are with that building. I think this next step helps us kind of solidify that. I don't think you can find a person in the town of Londonderry that says they want to get rid of this building.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What I'm asking is, do we think that they may be tacking on more money eventually down the line, or are they
Well,
sticking to these numbers?
So after the conceptual, I mean, usually you kind of do these things all concurrently. We're taking modest steps in that direction, but yes, a design, after this, the next phase is a design. Now, we can do it one of two ways. We can say we want to do a design next, now that we have a conceptual idea of what we want to do, then they can go and make that a reality, and they can design around that blueprint, around that look, if you will. If they believe that from what they already know of the building and from what we do here, we could potentially say we've got a good ballpark on what it would take to make that a reality. So we could do the design and the build in the same warrant allocation that we'd want to do. It's aggressive. Because the construction industry is pretty tough to predict right now on what's going on with
I'm
costs
just
and whatnot.
impressed with the numbers, considering working in the construction industry myself, how cheap they're willing to put on this project for architectural, civil, and landscaping design.
Yeah, this is not a design. This is just going to be basically, some appearances, measuring that building up. It'll help them in their design for sure. They'll know exact square footage. We're not going to do a certified, plot survey or anything like that. That would be part of a design phase.
Of course, okay.
But this will get us some good visuals that we can bring in instead of then looking at street view as we are now, and understanding, some of the things that we've been talking about is, for example, in the front left corner office of that building, if you will, it probably served as an office one time. That's where the vault is still, remains from when the town hall used it. And but all the HVAC equipment is in there. Now, that's not logically a good spot. So we've been talking about, what if we move the mechanicals to the back, small addition off the back? What if we put the kitchen back there? Things of that nature, and what would that mean? What would that entail? That would allow us more room in the lobby area to do the ADA compliant bathrooms that we need, a downsized scale of I'll call it an elevator, but not your traditional style elevator that you see here. It allows us to not have that on the exterior of the building. We're only going 2 floors rather than land grade, first floor, second floor. So those are the types of things that we want to try to show that this is what we could do to keep costs down. I don't think we want to build a $10 million community center here, but
course not.
I think this will get us a good round ballpark number as to where we could be, and then we can see if the taxpayers support that or not.
In the end, I'm still very impressed with the numbers that they were providing.
I beat
this
them up pretty
design
good.
visualization is not
I want
cheap.
them to stay conservative. They're excited about this project. I know we have discussed L-chip stuff. That's been thrown at me too. I've worked with L-chip. It's a long, tedious process. It's an important one, but it's more if you're really going to make it as a. They don't want to. L-chip doesn't want to get into making a historical property into a town community center. That's not doesn't jive too well, and it's sometimes it drives cost extensive because of the types of materials that they want you to use and whatnot. You can't have vinyl siding. You can't do things like that. So.
Right.
Yes.
Quick question, Dave.
Yeah.
Would this ARPA money be able to be used for any of the structure? You mentioned like the foundation and the structure. You think we can repair it? Would any of that money be able to be used to fix that? Because I know that's a concern.
Well, this ARPA request is
Not this one. The money that we have, the $2 million. Would any of that in the future?
Well, I don't think so. Well, I don't know. The financing of it, that's above my grade. But I would think you're looking at more of a warrant article for something like that.
It would be much more appropriate to take
Yeah.
it to the
No,
voters
just-
and let them
Yeah.
decide whether or not they want to
Correct.
fund, this type of a project. It really would be up to them.
Yeah.
I think this was a good start. I mean, one thing we do know is in these historical properties, when you start to look at them, things are gonna pop up. And, it won't surprise me if there's some additional fees, but this is a pretty good start.
Certainly.
So my one question is that, we know there's a river running underneath the building.
Yes.
Right now, there's probably a flood under the building. And that, but is any type of what they're looking at here going to give us some sort of an idea of what we need from a foundational standpoint?
So some of the grades will certainly help that. Some of the solutions to the floor itself would certainly prevent that if we go with a flowable fill in there so that we no longer have a crawl space. Like I was explaining earlier today, I was talking to a resident about this facility. And, if we're going to do things like that to make those corrective measures to keep the water out of the building, then we want to know what kinds of, plumbing do we got to put in the floor. If we're going to move some bathrooms to the back, or we're going to move the kitchen, then again, this conceptual, would give them the information they need to know to kind of tell us what we need for the long term for this building.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? What do you want to do?
Proceed.
Proceed.
All I need is a consensus, Mr. Chairman.
Sounds like you have one.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.